watch finance. Facilities went a little long. We are starting our finance meeting tonight. We have a couple things on the agenda. The first item is the 5-year financial forecast. And Mr. Reinhardt has done a great deal of work on that. Second item is basic education funding. And then we have a few other items that some are staying on, some aren't, but they're going quickly. So we're going to start. We have a handout, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Reinhardt.
I would like you to think of this as the introduction to the 2017-2018 budget season. As we did last year, the first thing I'm going to do is go over some financial forecasts. But I want to put some context with what's going on at the state so that you'll have what's going on and where a lot of uncertainty, and I should expect that that's going to continue. Just some articles that I've seen as I look through the PSBA daily notices, and one of them here is will report for growing PA deficit, revive, fight overdue taxes. Right now, this year's budget, I understand, is in the hole by about $500 million. Knowing that education is the biggest expenditure for the state, I'm a little concerned that we may not get all the funds that we're supposed to this year. Looking at it next year, they're calling this a full deficit, meaning that there's not enough revenue in the system, and it's going to continue and be a problem next year unless there's additional taxes. The governor has recently come out and said he's not going to ask for additional taxes next year. Later on in the presentation, I'm going to show you the basic ed subsidy and the new funding mechanism and the new hold harmless, which is really important to us. And you're going to see why I don't have high expectations. Next thing I get in the sent to me is the S&P does a special report on Pennsylvania school districts that face more funding pressure due to sluggish state revenue growth, rising costs. And they're saying, based on what they see, there's going to be another long budget battle in the state. And now this is S&P, which is not going to downgrade our state a little further, but S&P is taking notice. Finally, this came out with the election results. And has time finally come to eliminate school property taxes? Last year, the Senate introduced legislation, and it got voted down by 1 vote. They now believe that they have enough votes for this to carry on. Should that occur, $14 billion of property taxes collected statewide will get changed to state revenue. Additionally, they say 70% of that $14 billion is raised by the wealthiest districts in the state. Meaning, to me, is there's probably going to be, if the state ends up getting state revenue and distributing it, there's probably revenue being distributed away from us. Since when you think of our budget is $226 million. We collect $141 million of real estate taxes. We're one of those districts of the 70%ers. So it's a lot of uncertainty, and I just want to make sure you know that. Pension costs will continue to climb for school districts. Before I was telling you it's going to stay around 32%. Now we're seeing as high, it's going to go up to 36% in the next coming years for the pension fund.
Wasn't that capped by statute?
It's capped on how much they can increase each year. They can only increase it. Yes. Okay. It's not a ceiling, and the numbers I've seen this year are higher than I've seen in the past, and they've been updated for your presentations that we're going to go over in a little bit. So I just want to put that as the backdrop of what's going on. Don't expect that it's going to be a simple, easy year. I think it's going to be chaotic again, and it could be tough. 5-year forecast. I've updated everything based on last year's operations. This year's budgets are a starting point, and let me go through that. I'm going to start with that now. First of all, this sheet looks very familiar to you, I hope. And we're gonna go to these sheets first. Matt, can you switch these sheets on? It's gonna be very difficult to see them online. Okay. Yes, that's perfect, and we're gonna do what a projection. Yes.
Is that the first of our sheets?
Yes, that's the first of the sheets. There are 5 versions of this projections, and that's all about school closing, what the effect, the estimated effect that'll occur in 2018-19. First of all, I want to make sure you see, set up exactly what we did before. 16-17 is the budget that we're in right now. What I've taken now is the forecast to say, historically, revenues usually come in about 1% higher than budget and go down that. And expenditures usually come in about 1% lower than budget. So although our budget is showing $4.3 million, if that should occur, I'm saying we're close to about breaking even. You see why the $4 million has always been my target number? Because based on historic ways, and I hope this keeps happening, this is what will happen. So now you're going to see for each year, you're going to see what happens if the budget comes in the way we budgeted for exactly, or if we get our surpluses that we find, and you'll see the differences as we go forward. So now you have, I'd say, worst case, best case scenario. And you'll see how that works all the way through.
Bob,
Go ahead.
just to be clear, we don't typically come in a full % over revenue and a full % under expenses. We usually come in somewhere in the middle. So you did the absolute best, and then projection is the worst. So realistically, we're unlikely to break even, but we're unlikely to be negative $4 million. We're likely, my guess is to be like negative $1 million.
If you remember 2 years ago, we got $3 million more than we ever expected, and then PlanCon came in. So yes, it goes, and this is just me to show you a variance.
Absolutely best.
Yes.
And then,
Yes. So this is just something that I added because last year, you may all say, well, you showed us the worst case at the end, and I told you that, but at least now you're going to see what I would consider the best case. So you're going to see a range of what I think is going to happen in 5 years. Again, I'm telling you all these changes at the state level, this is all status quo, guys, because I don't know what's going to happen there, and all those things could change things quickly.
Oh, you're assuming the tax increase of basically 2.5% every year?
2.5% first year, which is the earning index, and then I moved it to 2.4 again.
Or whatever.
Yes, all the way out.
Sorry.
right on
And I
top.
will tell you,
No, that's what I'm looking for, I just looked
Yeah.
the first number.
if this was 6.5 million and we didn't make the cuts that we made last year, I'd be talking a different story now. So a lot of this is the hard work we did last year, the reductions that we made and things like that. If we didn't deal with that, I'd be here telling you guys I'm really concerned. So these numbers look better, but you're going to see where as long as we take this $3 million out, our fund balance is going to continue to drop. And I know Dr. Foster has talked about that often, and Doug says, well, 3 million is not enough, we need 5 million or 6 million, that would drop it even more. So let's go through this, and
$500,000 from me.
if you understand what I've done, the changes I've made is I've increased the real estate taxes assessed value by 0.4%. I'm assuming that our assessed value is going to continue to go up by 0.4%. That's pretty much on average. Last year it went up a little more. And then I took the Act 1 index with the same collection rate, and those are the additional revenues that I'm showing in for our real estate taxes. All the other taxes except retirement and Social Security, all the other revenues, I just said it's going to go up 1%. Okay? That could be good, it could be bad. I will tell you, I expect that our interest earnings are going to go up much more than 1%, but I think there's other revenues that aren't going to go up 1% going forward, so I've used that. State retirement is half of what our expenditure is, so that went up by higher because they're reimbursing us. If the state ever breaks off and says we're not paying you 50% anymore, and you'll see examples where they used to pay 50% of stuff and they don't anymore, that would change this dramatically. Appropriations, I'm increasing salaries $1.5 million. That's an average I've taken. That's probably a little higher than we have been doing, if you remember. It's, each year, but after next year, we have a new contract, so I don't even know what that is. So we could give or take that. The 300 to 900 objects, I went up 1.5%. Those are basically the analysis that you should see here. Healthcare costs, I went up $1 million each year, except for the year where we'll be reducing staff should we close schools. What? Oh, you know, pass these around. I gave. I thought you'd want highlighters because as you look at numbers on here, you could highlight specific numbers that you see. Because this is what I would do if I was looking at this. So as we talk about things and you see things or you compare things, looking at all these numbers on here, if you don't have something like that, you're not going to be able to find the number. So that's just to help you guys out. Okay, let's go to the next page. These numbers are exactly the same thing, except you'll see at the center.
Wait, Bob, can I say one thing? So that bottom line ending fund balance is the best and worst case scenario as you go across 5 years, because there was a lot of conversation. So 5 years out, predicting with the assumption Bob said, we could either be negative 10 million or positive 14 million. So it's a $24 million swing.
And please understand that we'd never go deficit 10 million. We'd be making changes here. We wouldn't be taking the 3 million out. We'd have to be doing other things earlier than that. But it's just showing you if we continue to do it. Please know that if I'm here, there's no way I'm going to say, yeah, we're at 10 million, negative 10 million. What do you want to do next year? It'll be, things will happen way before that we would have to deal with. But it's just illustrating that.
Okay,
Okay?
page 2.
Page 2. This is now,
Which tab is that?
huh?
Is that the
Tab.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is now the same as the last one, except now you'll see over the 2018-19, you'll see closing Richboro Middle School. You will now see that we're estimating the net savings of closing Richboro Middle to be about $1.6 million. Okay?
Annually? No, that's just a one-time.
Well, it comes down once, but you'll see the way it affects your going all the way out. It does continue to affect your
salaries, right?
Yeah, it's salaries, benefits. There's some other things I'd have to pull it out, but I don't have it here, but I do have the calculations on all that.
So is there a one-time charge somewhere and then the other stuff's just assumed in the other lines?
What it is, if you would go back, pull the first page out and
Right.
compare the first page, 1819, to the second page, 1819. So if you compare no school closing with that, you'll see the adjustments, and it nets out to 1.6 million. There's changes all over the place there.
It doesn't look like you reduced benefits though.
I did reduce benefits.
You did?
Yeah, if you look like the,
Healthcare, 1819 says 23.4. Oh, you said 400,000.
yes,
Okay.
okay?
We're just not, it's not that many staff members. 200,000.
There was more staff members when we originally looked at it. There's two reasons why it isn't. We have cut some staff already now in the past year, and now we're evening out both middle schools. So now it's 3.5 teams in each school. So that takes away like 2 staff members that we would have been able to do if we had 4 and 3. And Barry Desco knows the logic. I know Denise, you're looking at me, and I don't know the logic as well, because you might be looking at me and saying, but Barry knows it much better than I do. He and I worked on this together. So that is that schedule, and you can look at it and make your comparisons and everything. The next schedule,
Real quick,
yes,
I didn't look for it. I'm assuming this is just recurring revenues and recurring expenses.
Yes.
There are no one-time revenues.
correct. We didn't sell buildings in here, we didn't do anything. This is operating expenses and what we're doing with that. The debt service in here is a debt service where the same debt service we've had, which if we don't do one thing, we're gonna need to do something else with that debt service and borrow money to do things. So there's nothing in there saying, this is with doing the middle school, this is with not doing this or anything. It's just knowing what we're doing reoccurring.
And while it's, and admittedly, this is to give us a feeling for this, because the other thing that happened is you did take a staff reduction and you reduced this. You took the staff reduction, you only took 500,000. You didn't have it escalating by as much as it would have normally. But in the out years, you continued to increase salaries and benefits by as much as they would have increased for the X number of staff who aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a little rough because appropriately. I mean, if you decrease staff by 3%, that number would have come down by 3%. But you didn't.
I hope I'm right on by here, because I might not be, and that 1.5 might help me in the next year.
Yeah,
So that-
exactly, but I don't think you've taken the savings we'll realize in the out years.
You didn't take. You
I understand.
reduce it by
Proportionally,
3%.
I shouldn't take the 1.5 as salaries, I should have proportionally dropped
Take
that.
it as 0.97 or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
But it's for the purposes here,
Yes.
so
I
your
understand.
mileage may vary. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Those conservatives, okay. Like, you know, we're looking to do better.
So now, the presentation is if we would reduce and eliminate 3 schools. So on the bottom, you'll see it's 1.5,
0.9? Nothing there, 330.
yeah, well, here, this is the summary of them here.
Okay.
So you'll see that the middle school, again, if you look at the very bottom, it summarizes at 1.6 million at the very bottom down here.
Yeah, which scenario? Woodsboro and Redstown, gotcha.
Where's the 1.6?
Gotcha.
Keep going up.
It's at the bottom of the sheet, right in the middle.
You had it, it's RMRH? The right one's not up here.
Right, look at the bottom, you get your total savings.
No, this is projection.
No, that's,
They're not in order.
I want to do all 3, that's not all 3.
There you go.
Which one?
There, right here it is. Yeah. When you go down all the way to the bottom here. Yeah, you'll see the 1.5, the 700,000, and the 624. That is the net reduction in that year
For 3 schools.
for those 3 schools. And then you'll see the next 2 presentations are the same thing, except it's saying 1 elementary school, Rolling Hills, and then 1, it's the middle school and each of the elementary schools. What it shows you is the impact of making a decision like this. It really does, by the 5th year, it really does change our finances by these changes. So it's something that you should really look at and consider.
So who's not here?
Bill.
Bill,
Ed. Oh, Ed.
and then Ed left, but he had the stuff. So we'll make sure Bill gets a copy.
Yes,
Thank you.
I will invite Bill in and he and I will go over it.
Are you moving on from the spreadsheet?
Pardon
Are
me?
you moving on from this?
No, I'm letting you guys look at it and then give me questions on anything you have.
So we see that the benefits to and you're playing it out one time here, and then we see the differences in fund balance.
Yes.
So the question for us, and you're assuming the same tax increase across the line too. So the question for us, as the board becomes, we've got value creation, if you will, in the fund balance. Do we use that to offset taxes, or do we use that to invest back into education ultimately, depending on how we feel about what that fund balance level would be? The
Yes.
question I would be asking is, the whole reason that we're looking for efficiencies is to create money, either to decrease the burden on taxpayers, or at least hold it flat, or to make improvements in education where we need them, right? So that's,
We have had considerable cuts in the last 6 years.
Right.
100 employees aren't here. So I am concerned to have another bad budget year. We are getting down to a critical area, I believe, and what I hear from the schools and things that I hear, that I just want to make sure you know that increase in taxes 0.65 and 0.25.
No, I recognize I'm not taking, yeah.
That caused us to be where we were. I'm trying to show you guys that there's uncertainty here. This damn retirement is still.
Yeah, no, I get all that.
So that's why I'm.
No, I'm not taking a position on the
Yeah.
tax increase or not the tax increases. What I'm trying to get my arms around is the value that's created.
Yes.
So we can figure out how to deploy it. So as an example, I don't think our administrative staff is big enough to do the work that it needs to do. How would we fund, so as we start to look at some of these out years, as we go through the budget year, it would be interesting to see what the impact of additions are. We feel like we need to do more things in education every year. What's that look like and how does that impact this bottom line? So that way, if we do feel like these taxes are necessary, what's the value we create back to education and to the district
What are your
itself?
priorities and how do you?
Against the cash that is shown here.
Is there any hindrance to you giving me a copy of the spreadsheet? I need a graph. These tables of numbers, I mean, it's the details, but I need a picture that varies. Can we get a digital copy of this, or is there some reason? And I'll share what I do back with you.
Well, I appreciate that. I will definitely give you this. Can I, and I guess I'm not, I would protect some of my formulas in here so they don't get messed up. You know Excel, and I know it's
fine.
I just give it to him, copy it as values, and just give it to him as values.
Is that okay?
I
You want to see what's going on.
I don't really want to see, but I want to give it back to him, so if he changes it, my graph changes. Is the only reason that all I want to do is make a graph with your numbers, not change them.
If you don't get it by Monday,
That's fine.
remind me.
I don't want
And
you to.
then I'm just going to protect it just so that the formulas can't change.
All right, you're not going to offend me if you do that.
Okay.
That's fine.
Can you give that to all of us?
Yeah, I kind of assumed that.
Yeah, just making sure.
Okay. Yes, I can definitely do that. Look at this. Email me questions or whatever you like with this. It's a lot of information and it's hard to digest, but
That's great stuff.
It's very helpful.
It's great. Can I make a comment?
of course.
You know, this is so great, Bob. When the first year we had our budget discussion, I asked for this and we couldn't get it. And I want to thank you for doing, so we have not just a 5-year, I know we had it last year. I think last year was the first year. And then we have several different scenarios. So I really want to thank you for doing it. I want to thank you, Robert, too, for allowing that bandwidth to do it. So this is fantastic. Graph would be great too.
And I'll give it back to you, and you can share it with the board again. That's fine.
Well, you can share it with everybody.
That's fine. I don't know. It just helps me for a visual, to compress the numbers.
I'd love to see how you think, and by those graphs you're going to show me, and maybe I'll be able to do better for you.
So Bob does use these numbers going forward in future months' presentations at Finance Committee. So this would be something, we'll always refer back to he'll always refer back to it, but just, you want to keep it, maybe keep it in your finance folder or whatever.
Okay. The next, we can go back to the presentation now. And this is, I'm taking a risk here. I just want to tell you. Yeah. This is a big risk for me because I'm getting in some detail that may be confusing at times because it's a lot of numbers. But I think it's something that ultimately you guys are going to be very versed in understanding what's going on with basic ed subsidy. And I think it'll help you with the community and what's going on. So I'm going to try to do this the best I can. First thing I did is I gave you a history of our basic ed funding. And many times you hear that the government is finally back to their 2008, 2009 numbers. If you remember, that was the bad economy year and the state budget went down poorly. And then they augmented with that ARA funding. Do you remember that? So now we are finally back to where we were. You see those numbers? They're exactly the same for 11, 12, 12, 13.
So 13, 14, 15 is the whole run this year, just because we don't have red?
Yes, yes. That is huge for us to know. 14, 15, we're exposed for any money in addition to the $13,800,000 for the new funding formula. In the past, I'm going to go through a history of basic ed subsidy very quickly, just show you so you know where it started and where it is now. But understand that that's our number right there. This is what they published. That's what we received. I can't account for the $190, but I'm not sure why that is different. That is the number they published for our whole harvest. Okay, Matt.
And ADM is our student population.
Oh yeah, let me go back to that. Yes, that is our ADM. That's basically for every student that's here, every day you get one.
Yep.
So if they're enrolled here, they don't have to be in attendance every day, but they get one.
Yep.
Okay, history of basic ed funding, pre-1983, very simple. It was based on teaching units. They used some aid ratio, actual expenses, and look at that. The level of state support was set at 50%. Okay? So that went from 66 to 1983. 1983, they changed to a formula. And this was a really good formula because it looked at your wealth. It looked at the size of the district by using the WADMs. WADMs was called a weighted average daily membership, and that is for every half-time kindergarten student, you got 0.5 of an ADM or a WADM. For every elementary student, you got Wendy likes that word, you got a 1.0 for a WADM, and then you got for every secondary
Middle school.
student, it's secondary student, you got 1.36 for every secondary student, because at that time they said secondary education was more expensive than elementary education. The fee was something that legislatively they changed to make it meet the budget, because the calculation was based on the fee that you received, so they could move that fee up and down to get it to their budget number at the state level. 50% support was eliminated, but that's where the 2% hold harmless was, meaning that you get last year's allocation plus you're going to get 2%. Didn't care what your size of your district went or the wealth of your district went in, you were guaranteed 2%. So, since 83 to where we are now, school districts grew, school districts got smaller, thank you. So, 92 to 93, all the way through 14, 15, except for 2008, 2010, it became politically focused. And it was unbelievable when you saw these supplements we were developed to get a lot of money to 5 school districts. Reading, Allentown, and someone else got all this money, and it's because they devised these formulas to just give them money. And that was the problem area. Then PARS came in, which is the Pennsylvania Association for Rural and Small School Districts. So now they had to fix them, so somehow they got them money. And it was just politically allocated out, and we're still getting the 2%. 2008, 2010, Ed Rendell had a costing out study, and I loved it. It was great analysis showing you what was needed for a school district to be successful, and then the determination of state funding was going to be 50% of this calculated number. We didn't have enough money close to it in the Pennsylvania budget, so he was trying to get up to that number, but we couldn't get up to that number. Corbett got in and go back. Corbett got in and threw it away again, and we got back to the 2%. So this is what the 2% created. Go ahead. If you look here, this is the basic ed funding. This is the people's aid ratio. 0.15 are the wealthiest school districts. 0.56 are the less wealthy. So 0.5 0.15, I should say. If you take your basic ed funding divided by your ADMs, which is the size of your district, you would think that everyone that are wealthy should get about the same amount of money. Well, look at that. Palisades is doing well. Council Rock, we're actually doing very well. New Hope Soulberry isn't doing as well. And then you can look through here and you can see that some districts, Bristol Borough has done very well. Morrisville has done well. But you'll see it makes no sense. Based on your wealth and your size, you weren't getting money. So this is like this all over the place. In fact, turn to the next slide. Look at this, 3.4, and they're only getting, we're getting $500 more than a district that's not very wealthy. Why am I missing? 0.56. They are less wealthy than most school districts in the state. And they're only getting $459. Council Rock, look what we were getting. What were we getting? $1,200. So this is happening all over the state.
How special ed impact that, or doesn't it?
Doesn't.
Does it all?
No. Special ed is a total different animal and allocated differently. But because of this, the Basic Ed Funding Commission was established, and they believe they've removed the politics from the process. So last year, the funds were allocated based on that. Now, Andy, you might not remember this, but you remember you gave me this handout, and you said, Bob, we're going to lose $5 million next year in basic ed subsidy. Do you remember that?
I didn't tell you we were going to lose it. I said somebody just handed me this.
Well, I knew that the legislator gave you that. And you know how that happened? If they allocated all the money today based on the new distribution,
right,
we would lose $5 million this year. Did you notice the one $1,200 that we're getting in another district that's very poor is only getting $400?
Yep.
Well, that was getting us where they think we should have been if they were going to allocate it all the way. They never intended to do that, and they're saying you're going to get what you always got from 2014-15, which is that 13.8 million,
right,
but we're not guaranteeing anything going forward.
right.
So now we are exposed.
Any increases going forward.
What?
Any increase.
They're not guaranteeing any increases going forward.
You're going to get the 13.8 million for sure. The formula is driving everything else that we give you.
Yep.
And if your enrollment goes down, if your wealth really goes up, or something changes, you'll get 13.8.
So if your enrollment drops 50%, you still get 13.8.
Yes. That stuff's what happened to make these things all different.
I understand.
Okay. The new formula is totally changed.
And
There,
just to clarify, the new formula is for any money over the 13 million.
yes.
For us, 13 million.
For everybody, for whatever you were frozen at,
Right,
13,
yes,
14. Any new money will be decided by this.
Yes. This is the size factor, which is the student count. The student count is your ADMs. We don't have bottoms anymore, it's only ADMs. Poverty, acute poverty, which is I think $24,000 household income, and regular poverty I think is 185% of that number. And then if there's a concentrated poverty, we don't have any concentrated poverty, but these increase your student counts by that percentage. English language learner, it gets increased by 0.6. Charter school enrollment, 0.2. Small and rural school districts. The average size of a school district in Pennsylvania, the median, is 3,340 students. Statewide average students per square mile is 37.96. We will not ever participate in any of that. Then they determine a change or a calculation of your student count to get your size based on your wealth and taxation. Meaning, let's say we get 11,000 students, now they're going to adjust that downward percentage-wise based on how wealthy you are, your tax effort, and your tax capacity. Which one do you think is dawning for us? Which one do you think is the thing that's going to be most telling for us?
I think capacity.
Capacity? Well, let's go and we're gonna see it, because it's very interesting. Median household income. Council Rock's median household income is 111,836. State average is 53,115. We're the fourth highest in the state. That is the area that hurts us the most. And I know your question is going to be, well, who are we competing with?
What? It's only your people. Sorry.
Who do you think we're competing with? Who do you think's the top one in the state? No?
Lower Marion.
Main line.
Lower Marion, yeah, Lower
No?
Marion.
No?
No, they're not big.
Unionville, Chad's Ford.
Yeah.
Their average household income is $120,000. Second one, Griffin, Easttown, $115,000. Third one, Lower Marion, $112,000.
Like on the board.
Guess what?
Not
We're only $120 less than Lower Marion. We're fourth. Pine Richland, that's by your area.
Do we know how many?
Pine Richland's in Allegheny County.
North of the city.
Do you know where New Hope Shulberry is?
New Hope Soulberry's right below them. They're 108. We just got new numbers and New Hope Soulberry did jump us. So, for next year's calculation. What I'm saying here is when you look at this and you're going to see these numbers, this is why I'm going to tell you we're not going to don't look for a lot of money here and be a little concerned as our enrollment continues to go down, that 13.8 could be approachable. In the past, I always knew I was going to get last year, so I always budgeted last year. But now 13.8 could go down to in a year when something happens. And with the state, with the budget crisis, the number that they're allocating today could be less, $100 million less next year, and it's going to affect us downwards for sure. So anyway, local effort capacity, household income is 58.82% times local revenue. State average is 50.15. So we have more wealth than tax effort compared to the state, but it's not as high. We're 157th in the state out of 500 school districts. Current expenditures per ADM, we're at 16.9. State average is 11.360. We're the 18th highest in the state. Okay. Population, here we go. This is just the size factors. 3-year average of our ADMs is $11,000. Acute poverty, 2.14%. And these are all census information. It's no longer state information. We used to determine this by free or reduced lunch applications. So now this is really out of our hands. But when they're saying we're at 2.14, you take the ADMs, multiply it by 0.6, and you get an adjustment upwards. Yep.
So is that number now greater or less? Now that it's not based on free and reduced lunch?
You know what? I should look. I don't know.
That's okay. It's not that important. I was just curious.
But now, just poverty is 5.9. That increases it by 192. We have no concentrated English learners. We have 202. We get to adjust it. 6.6. I guess that's 60%. Charter schools, we have 47. We get 9. So our adjusted, but it doesn't look at wealth or anything. Our adjusted portion of ADMs or size is $11,000. Think about this. If wealth didn't come into play in this, we would add all the ADMs for the state, and we get a proportionate share of that, of the 11,000 of the total ADMs in the state. Okay. This is a sparsity thing that I just put in there, but we're not going to ever have anything to do. Median household income index. Here we go. Go back to that. Here it is. The calculation is 1 over our median household income over the states, and that comes out to 0.4749. What I've done, I've put that in red because that is the component that gets calculated off of your size. So now you multiply the 11,000 by the 0.47, and it reduces your size by that much because of the wealth. That's a huge reduction. Now the local effort, This is the value of our local taxes. This is our household income, that's the amount of households. So that's how you got to the 58.82. And so that's our statewide factor. Go ahead. Excess spending factor. This again is taking our expenditures to calculate. I'm missing this calculation now. The current expenditure per weighted average child divided by the state median. So that is the calculation of our spending, saying that we spend more than the state average. So that's 0.66. Local effort factor multiply the excess spending factor are the two, and that's 0.78. Okay, that's the factor that that'll be calculated too. Okay?
Where's the state average in that calculation?
State average,
It is 11,360, right?
Is it the median? 11,360.
That looks like the one and two.
Go back.
That's where-
Matt. Go back. Go back. Go forward.
I just saw it, go back.
Go back.
Say what I mean, I'm the
Yeah,
That's
that's it, okay. Okay, now the local capacity index that is our assessed value of a personal income value, and that is times the state median local effort rate divided by student, that's our student count. Go to the next thing. Oh, okay. It's 0 because our capacity is greater than the average, so you don't calculate that. So then the local effort capacity index is the 78, and if we had something there, it would add to that. But the 78 is our number for that. That isn't, the effect is we're wealthy, but it isn't a huge effect. Now let's look at this. The size factor is the number that we have before. You multiply it by the two averages, so that size factor now is going down to 4,269. So think about it. Before our wealth, we would have gotten 11,000 credit. We've cut it in half. If you look at this number, the statewide is 2.9 million. So that is a statewide number. So if you divide this by the statewide number, we receive 0.00145971 of the money that's being allocated. So remember the 13.8 million? The state is allocating an additional $352 million above the 14-15 allocation. So we get an additional 514,400 from our guarantee. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So when you're in the public, I expect you to explain all those formulas to your constituents.
No, I don't want, I just wanted you guys to
No, I'm
see
saying it's
what it
complicated.
is. It is complicated, but the big thing is our median homestead,
Well, our
wealth,
wealth is causing us to get less out of the state allocation.
and it makes me concerned that there's not a lot, and that we are exposed now to 13.8 million. So right now, I think I have $14.1 million in the budget. I think we're over by 200 and some thousand dollars. But now, before I always knew we were gonna get at 14 million, now I have to worry about, are we gonna go back to 13.8 million?
I'd rather do it this way than have to steal property tax.
Washington's crossing.
That's what they're talking about now.
I know.
Just said
I
that.
just said we were gonna.
Okay.
They want to succeed. They succeed
You
anyway.
guys know the points I tried to make there. It's long and everything, but I apologize for that.
No, it's good.
That's the bottom line.
This is really what I just said. That's a summary. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
How about that postage meter?
Postage meter, this change, we're not gonna do this. I have some other things I have to deal with this now, so I'm not gonna propose this tonight. And this is very quick. The Act 32 countywide tax collection, if you remember Act 32, when we had to select a countywide EFT collector, there is now an operating committee that Wendy and I are Council Rock delegates to. The other month, I could not make the meeting. I had a conflict. Council Rock, we have a weighted vote there. Council Rock and Central Bucks are essential to get a quorum in there. If I can't make it, I feel like, I think they had a quorum because I told them I couldn't make it and they still had a meeting. But there's many times that they're gonna have a quorum if we're not there. What I'd like to do is ask you to approve Gail Chloe to also be able to go there. The meetings are mundane. They are really not anything, decisions being made, it's kind of.
Okay, are we on agreement that we're okay? It'll be on the consent agenda.
Absolutely.
Great.
I think that's it. I got through it, I'm sorry that.
No, we started.
It's that damn dovetail. You're on time, well done. Dr. Dovetail.
I guess Mark did acknowledge it, but I know we were all sitting here watching, but it was a lot of work that Bob put into tonight's meeting, a lot of backup, a lot of checking. So it was really all about tonight, keeping us informed. None of it's gonna appear on consent agenda besides Gail, to make her a delegate, but everything else was really just about making sure we're informed about some of the things that are happening financially. So thank you very much, Bob, you did a great job. We appreciate it.
I think this sets us up going into the budget process.
Yes, and
We
the
can
next
use
thing is
this
gonna go
model
on
and
this-
see the impact of our decisions all the way up.
So I want to take any board comment before I go to public comment? No? Okay, public comment?
This brings up to me a lot of other questions, like now that I know which are the wealthiest school districts in the state, I'm very familiar with their school districts and what they do academically. They do way more than we do. They have more administrators, they have more, they have one-to-one computers, they have, more computer technicians. I've been talking to a lot of people in different school districts who are in charge of technology for their school district. So now I'd like to see does the state rate them as far as their taxing burden?
What's
That's my first question. Does the state rate school districts to compare their wealth compared to their taxing burden? Equalize the mills?
One of those calculations are there, and I could rank it, because I have the formula and the calculation for every district, and I can rank it based on that index, that
Okay.
capacity index.
And that's information that just comes to you?
No, you can get it online.
I could get it online. Oh, yeah. And then, the IU used to do it and put out a booklet. And any citizen used to be able to get that booklet. Do you know if that's available? They do like an apples to apples on comparison of taxes, salaries.
I
blah,
think
blah, blah.
that book is published. I don't have that book, but I believe it's
Who's
still
the
published.
IU rep? Could you find out?
Sure.
Thank you. And then I have a question, a holdover from the last meeting. The board gave you some direction on what to do about these assessments. My understanding is you're supposed to find out what it would cost to do 5, 3, is that the board direction? What do you understand the board direction was after you had this discussion about assessments?
You mean
I am
appraisals?
going to reach out to the two appraisers that I've had experience with.
Right.
And I am going to list the buildings that have not been renovated in the past 8 years, whatever it is. I think I've listed buildings that were, plus I'm gonna put the house track on, and I'm gonna ask them to give me proposals for the cost of doing
Okay.
appraisals.
Well, 24 inches should be on that list.
Pardon me?
24 Chancellor.
I am gonna get a cost for Chancellor. The board's gonna give me direction because they'll vote on a motion to tell me what they want me to do.
Okay.
How much it is to get an appraisal?
So,
That's, okay.
Not
For
the
all those
appraisal itself.
properties.
Right, not getting the appraisal. It's just how much does it cost us to
And
get
when will
the
that
appraisal?
take place?
When will that take place?
Next week for finance or longer?
You know what, I'd like to talk to
Okay.
Dr. Frazier because we have timeframes we have to meet. If I can bring it back to finance next month and have the board discuss it before I throw it at a public meeting and say, what are we gonna do? I'd probably prefer that,
Okay.
but I'm not sure I'm doing that.
I wasn't sure, so thank you.
Probably. Okay, any other comments? Public? No? Okay. Any other board comments? Okay, meeting adjourned.